Well, welcome to House Talk this week. It's Wally and Cindy Kerr.
Hello.
Hey, Cindy. Another hot, humid summer. You weren't used to this when you came here from Southern California. How you feeling about this hot, humid weather?
Well, I'll tell you, we got a taste of some beautiful weather 2 weeks ago when you took me on a surprise 30th anniversary trip
did do that, didn't
to
I?
Montana. Never in my life have I not known where I was going until I walked up to the gate at the airlines, and it was so awesome. You know I love the outdoors, so what a trip.
Well, for someone like you who's done the Death Valley ride on a horse, you've trucked your horse from when you lived in L.A. I think you said you trucked and did Jackson Hole. You went
High
through the
Sierras.
Tetons, the High Sierras. You
Yep.
went through Idaho. So I had to think about a place that would be cooler during the summertime that you'd never been, and I realized that you'd never said anything about Montana. So I booked that trip 5 months ago.
It was awesome. We went to Glacier National Park, which is on the Canadian border. We hiked, we saw bighorn sheep, we saw so many wonderful things. Wally wanted to see a moose, and you didn't get to see a moose. You bonded with a wild animal, and I think we're going to talk about that on our next podcast, aren't we?
Yeah, actually, here's what we'll do. We're going to post, I have a 30-second video that you took with your phone, and our marketing director is going to take that 30-second clip, which is pretty cool. I promise it'll be worth your time. Go to wallytalkshouses.com and see this interaction that I had with this little creature.
You know, speaking of houses, I have to ask you, what's wrong with the real estate market right now? You know, I hear we've reached a 10-year high in the number of homes for sale. Is that right?
You know what's amazing is think back just 3 years ago for COVID and think about how low rates were. You know, Cindy, they were truly too low. They were 3% rates. So what's happened now is interest rates and affordability are just challenging the market.
You know, that's right. It's not just interest rates, because I remember when interest rates were higher than they are now, but it's the affordability. What is that composed of?
Well, let's talk about interest rates real quickly. Why did they not come down? Why is the Fed not lowering rates? And most people understand that the government's still concerned about inflation. And one of the reasons being is, you know, the current economic climate is promoting business and the economy is growing. And they're afraid that people will start spending money again and lead to inflation. Like if you've got money in a savings account and it's earning 2% at a bank, but if inflation goes back to 4%, your money's going nowhere.
You're losing.
You are. Interest rates were thought that they would come down, and here's what's happened. The NASDAQ and the S&P, just real quickly, are closing at almost record highs,
Right.
if not record highs right now. So the government wants you and I to go buy bonds. Okay, like savings bonds,
Sure.
like bonds. So if you had $50,000 today that you wanted to invest in your John Q. Public, do you want to earn 8% by investing in the stock market, which is really good right now? Or do you want to go buy a 10-year bond that pays you 4.3?
The former.
Well, absolutely. So here's the gig. When the stock market's doing well, everybody wants in.
Yeah.
When the stock market tanks, what do they want? They want peace of mind. They
Right.
want something that's slow and steady, which is what a bond is.
Right.
So right now the stock market's doing so well that the government has increased the rate of return on a 10-year treasury. It's up around 4.4%.
And that impacts the mortgage rates, doesn't it?
So mortgage rates follow what the 10-year treasury is doing. So they've boosted up the treasury rate to try to get people to buy them. And people are like, yeah, I don't really want to make 4.4% on my money. I want some of that 8% money, some of that 10% money, some of that 7% return. So they're investing in the stock market. Mortgage rates are following what 10-year treasuries are doing. And we all thought that rates would come down. Everybody's complaining about Jerome Powell, Cindy, because they think he has ultimate control over rates. That's actually a committee of people who are trying to make decisions so that you and I don't hit inflation again. So that's what's happening with rates.
And you know, I know affordability isn't just interest rates. What else impacts that?
Well, so here's a quick example. It's really homeowners insurance. Cindy, I've got a property that's about 10 miles east of Noble. I was sent out on a referral, and I listed a home in Macomb, Oklahoma on 35 acres. 3 years ago, the homeowner's insurance on that property was $2,200 a year. Last year, it was $4,400, and the current policy just renewed at $6,900 per year. On a $7,000 insurance policy, rates are higher and insurance is higher.
And you know, some folks do need to sell, though, so there's fewer buyers. What can a seller do to attract the buyers that are still in the marketplace?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because there are fewer buyers, because buyers aren't excited about rates. But can you imagine what would happen if rates fell suddenly to 5.5% today?
We'd be flooded with, yes.
And it would be cheaper to go buy a car,
Right.
to take a second mortgage, to do a HELOC. The credit card interest rates would be lower. So that would likely lead to inflation. These decreases in the mortgage rates in the 10-year Treasury, so that mortgage rates will follow, will have to be gradual. So here's what someone can look at doing today. Okay, we always talk about price, condition, location, right? Location we can't change, is that right?
Right.
If you don't want to drop your price, you mentioned to me yesterday that you were surprised how resilient home prices still are, even with the market slow.
That's right. I keep thinking we've seen these rates in years past, but the difference is prices haven't really come down.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are hanging on and thinking, hey, if my home doesn't sell this year, I'll just try again next spring. In answer to your question, if you really need to sell, price is one thing you can do, location you can't change. More than ever before, I would think that you would be looking at condition of your home,
right,
on how to compete. And then let's go back to a topic that we talked about last maybe 6 months ago, and that's this thing called buy downs. So let's talk about builders. You read an interesting article, Cindy, about what's happening to builders right now who are building these spec homes and putting them on the market, and what's happening to them right now.
The article said they're rolling over, meaning that they are reducing prices, offering buy downs. They have construction interests for the most part on those properties, so they must sell them.
So think about a builder for a minute. They build a $300,000 home. Typically, they've got at least a 15% profit. That's $45,000 in profit. Now, they're trying to control expenses, and I keep hearing things about materials going up. They're worried about tariffs, and construction costs are going up. So yeah, they've got to weigh how much they can come down. But if they have to sell homes, they can afford to pay for a buy down, which means like 1%, 2% lower the first year you own the home, and then 1% lower than market rate for the next year, and then it goes back to current interest rates. So let's say you lock a 6 3/4 today, and on a 2-1 buy down, the buyer's payment is based on 4 3/4 for the first 12 months, 5 3/4 for the next 12 months after that. Then it levels back up at 6 3/4. And in the meantime, what most people hope is that interest rates will come down and they can refinance when they fall.
And it sounds like something that a current seller, not a builder, but someone selling a resale home could offer to a buyer if you need to sell to attract a buyer.
So you've hit it on the head. It's harder for one of our sellers today that we're representing to go pay $8,000 or $10,000 toward a buy down. But if they're already figuring they might have to pay some closing costs or come down on price, I would recommend that any home seller today that needs to sell and not wait until next year and understands clearly that there's more homes available for sale today than at any time over the last 10 years. And why is that again? 2 reasons we talked about at the first of the show.
Interest rates and affordability.
That's it.
And Wally, would you welcome them to call you to kind of explain how that works?
I have a rate buy down calculator. And if you said, okay, Wally, I've heard about this buy down before. Maybe this is something I need to consider. How much would it cost me to do that? It's going to be based on the buyer's loan amount and where the interest rates are today and how much that buy down would cost. It's something the seller would pay for at closing. They just put money into an escrow account that the lender holds. The seller's done with it at closing, and the buyer benefits from a lower rate. And the reason you might want to do that is because there's lots of brand new homes on the market. Brand new home looks a lot better sometimes than some of the homes that were built more than 10 years ago that don't have that new open floor plan, the pretty white quartz countertops on the inside, the big island, the different colored cabinets, all this LTV flooring. That's hard for a home that's 15 or 20 or 30 years old to compete with, isn't it?
That's right. But what I like is that our listeners don't have to understand that completely. What they can do is call and you'll go over it with them in detail.
I can talk to you about how much a buy down would cost so that you understand how it might benefit you and allow you to be more competitive with the homes that are available for sale today.
And it's just an option. I think weighing your options as a seller, that's just the smart thing to do.
Well, and another option we haven't talked about in a while is what we call our Fix It to Sell program. Maybe your fence is torn up and you really don't have the money to replace that fence. Or you need new flooring, or you need some new paint on the inside, or you realize that wallpaper is, for the most part, kind of out of style. Our Fix It to Sell program allows one of our home sellers, any home seller that we visit with if your home qualifies, to borrow up to $9,000 to make needed improvements that will help your home sell faster and for top dollar so that you can compete against the other homes in the marketplace.
That's right.
Give us a call at 330-3000 and I'll tell you more about the Fix It to Sell program. Maybe that will help your home sell faster and for more money.
Hey, next time we're going to be talking about AI and its impact on the real estate market, both good and bad. We have a great marketing team here at Your Home Sold Guaranteed Kerr team. We have a Google specialist. We use AI. It's exciting what's going on.
It is, and it's allowed us to grow too. We've now opened our Tulsa office, and so we are in Edmond, and we're in Norman, in the entire Oklahoma City metro area with those two offices. We've opened a Tulsa branch office, and we now have a partner that's joined up in Ardmore. So Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty statewide. If you're buying or selling or know anybody that needs to buy or sell, please pass along our telephone number. Have them call or ask for Wally or Cindy at 330-3000, and we'll be with you again next time. Thanks for joining us today.